Victor Blackwell and Christy Polk.
Good Sunday to you. The White House is waging a public relations war, attempting to shift blame for the government shutdown to Democrats.
Yeah, several tweets yesterday where the president blames Democrats for failing to fund his border wall, despite saying earlier this month that he would proudly own any shutdown.
I will shut down the government.
Okay,
absolutely.
fair enough.
And I am
disagree.
proud, and I'll
we
tell you
disagree.
what, I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck. I will take the mantle. I will be the one to shut it down. I'm not going to blame you for it.
So for the next 4 days, Republicans control both houses of Congress, and there are no votes scheduled on reopening the government. Most likely, the first votes to fund the government will not come until Democrats take control of the House, and that happens on Thursday.
Now, the president's Twitter spat with Democrats took a new turn yesterday when he blamed Democrats for the crisis at the U.S. border with Mexico. CNN's Jessica Dean joins us now. And Jessica, the president is now blaming Democrats for the deaths of 2 migrant children who were in government custody.
Yeah, good morning to both of you. Well, I want to show you that tweet to which you're referring, Victor. The president tweeting this yesterday. It read in part, any deaths of children or others at the border are strictly the fault of the Democrats and their pathetic immigration policies that allow people to make the long trek thinking they can enter our country illegally. As you can imagine, this sparked outcry from Democrats. One of them, Congressman Ted Lieu, a Democrat of California, he tweeted, quote, even hashtag MAGA folks would concede at POTUS is not a doctor. He's just making stuff up again. In January, the House of Representatives will hold hearings with witnesses under oath and find out what happened. Hashtag January is coming. Now, the president was referring to an 8-year-old boy who died on Christmas Eve and a 7-year-old girl who died earlier this month in December, both in federal custody at the time of their deaths. And that sparked, of course, a lot of questions about how that could happen, what happened surrounding their deaths. And immigration, of course, just a linchpin in this shutdown that is now dragged on for days and days. And as you two pointed out, probably not any movement coming until at least January 3rd. We know the president canceled his New Year's Eve plans to stay here in Washington, D.C., much like he did with Christmas. He was expected to go down to Florida, to Mar-a-Lago. He decided to stay here in Washington. He also tweeted yesterday that he was waiting for the Democrats to come on over and negotiate a deal. But Mick Mulvaney, the acting chief of staff there at the White House, telling us yesterday that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have not been invited to the White House. One of the strategies here, of course, is also to put the blame on Democrats, but specifically Nancy Pelosi, saying that she's not dealing because that she doesn't have votes to get that speakership when most likely she does have those votes and will become speaker. But Victor and Christy, this drags on, and certainly a stalemate continues here in Washington.
All right, Jessica Dean for us in Washington. Thank you.
Margaret Taleb, CNN political analyst and senior White House correspondent for Bloomberg News with us now. Good morning, Margaret. Good to see you.
Good morning, Christy.
Good morning. Will you break this down for us here real quickly? Because we have to clarify this. We just heard in that soundbite the president say, I will own this, essentially. And then, of course, in that tweet saying that he will put this squarely on Democrats' shoulders. Is there any indication as we head into 2019, connected to 2020, of course, as everybody is watching, any indication that his base finds his direct contradictory statements to be at all problematic for him?
You know, Christy, I think the base is very sensitive to the idea that he might cut a deal that would seem favorable to the incoming Democratic majority in the House, or that would walk away from this idea of a wall. And so it's not so much when he said he would own the shutdown that was a problem for the base. That may be a problem for kind of the center. But for the base, it was the idea that he might cut a deal early on to avert a shutdown, which is what Republicans in Congress thought he was going to do. And so it was a surprise to many of them when the president sort of backed away from that deal and said he would own the shutdown. That is what the president thinks the base wants to hear. And the base gets sort of angry and chides him and pokes him when they think he might be caving. So the president is trying to kind of juggle two audiences at once. And for the general public, when he said in that video that we're still replaying that he would own the shutdown, a lot of his aides saw that as kind of a rhetorical mistake for the center, even if it was what the base wanted to hear. So trying to juggle these two interests, I think, is what you see the president doing. But of course, the Democrats aren't even actually in control yet. It is still the Republicans in Congress who have not been willing to pass what the president wants because they know it can't actually pass.
Washington Post reporting this morning as well that President Trump has some concerns about the market decline and that might hurt his re-election bid in 2020. He tweeted out yesterday, 2018 is being called the year of the worker by Steve Moore, co-author of Trumponomics. It was indeed a great year for the American worker with the best job market in 50 years, the lowest unemployment rate ever for blacks and Hispanics and all workers, big wage gains. I mean, the president has got some bragging rights here, no doubt about it. Yeah. But look at the market volatility that we've seen just in the last couple of days. If that becomes something that we see as more consistent in 2019, that volatility, is there a gauge of how detrimental that might be to him when it comes to re-election?
Sure, because the market signals confidence, even if the market doesn't affect everyone's pockets. The economy is a complicated thing, right? It's always a huge driver of not just sort of consumer behavior, but voter behavior, how voters feel. Do they feel good about the future? But there's so many different ways to measure it. The GDP numbers are really good. The unemployment numbers have been really good. And the president has been had bragging rights on those things. But wages have not caught up. And so for a lot of American workers, they're not personally experiencing the sort of boon of those economic gains. And when the markets dip like we saw them dip, when they dropped, not even dip, if that portends instability, uncertainty, or loss of confidence, that could be a problem for the president. So he knows that in order to sort of pursue these immigration policies, other more controversial policies that please the base, in order to hold the center, he's got to be able to continue having those bragging rights on the economy, on markets, on all of those things. And when those are shaky, the ground underneath his feet also becomes shaky.
All righty. Margaret Taleb, we appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Time magazine is reporting there's an alleged tie between a top Trump campaign figure and a Russian ex-spy. Now, here are the key players: Paul Manafort, former Trump campaign chairman; Viktor Boyarkin, a Russian ex-spy; and powerful Russian billionaire Oleg Deripaska, who has close ties to the Kremlin. And Boyarkin told Time that during the 2016 presidential campaign, Manafort was deeply in debt to Deripaska and began looking for ways to pay the money back. Manafort has been found guilty of 8 counts of financial crimes, tax fraud, bank fraud, hiding foreign bank accounts, and is scheduled to receive his first sentence in early February. Meanwhile, Deripaska and Boyarkin have been sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department. A spokesman for Manafort declined to comment to CNN about Time's new report.
In just a couple of days, Democrats are taking control of the House, which means their first chance to demand answers and actually expect to receive them by issuing subpoenas. CNN's Randy Kay gives us a look at one area where they could start: the Trump family business empire.
Is the Trump organization mixed up in money laundering? That's what some members of Congress want to find out. Deutsche Bank has a history of illegally laundering Russian money and a relationship with the Trump organization.
They paid hundreds of millions of dollars in fines to the state of New York because they were laundering Russian money. And this apparently was the one bank that was willing to do business with the Trump organization. Now, is that a coincidence?
Here he comes, here he comes.
There's also the Michael Cohen problem. The Trump organization's longtime lawyer pleaded guilty in August to 8 counts, including campaign finance violations tied to his work for Trump, which Cohen says included payments designed to silence women who claimed they had affairs with Trump, which Trump has denied.
He directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters.
Voters were kept in the dark as they headed to the polls. Yet Cohen admitted in court filings that in coordination and at the direction of a candidate for federal office, he kept information that would have harmed Trump from being made public during the 2016 election cycle.
And what about that proposed Trump Tower in Moscow? Cohen had previously said talks about the Moscow project ended in January 2016, before the Iowa caucuses. Turns out that was a lie. According to Rudy Giuliani, the talks continued into November, the month of the election. In court, Cohen admitted he made his false statements consistent with Individual One's political messaging and out of loyalty to Individual One. Just who is Individual One? Donald Trump.
All of this matters because if it's true, it could prove Trump was seeking business with Russia, while Moscow was secretly working to get him elected. And speaking of hotels, attorneys general for Maryland and D.C. have filed a lawsuit and subpoenaed financial records from the Trump Organization and the Trump International Hotel in D.C.
This is the most coveted piece of real estate in Washington, D.C., the best location.
The hotel plays host to foreign officials and leaders from around the world. The lawsuit suggests the president breached the emoluments clause of the Constitution, which prohibits the president from accepting payments from foreign powers while in office. All said, at least 5 committees in Congress now poised to probe the Trump Organization on everything Trump's touched, including his yet-to-be-released tax returns. Randy Kaye, CNN, New York.
Be sure to tune in to CNN's State of the Union today as well. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham and Terry McAuliffe on the show. That's State of the Union today, 9 a.m. Eastern, right here on CNN.
Newspapers across the country say they were hacked this weekend, but no one seems to know who's responsible.
16 minutes past the hour right now. And this morning, 2 Portland, Oregon men do not have a job anymore. That was after an incident that sparked national outrage.
The 2 men cornered a black guest at a Portland, Oregon DoubleTree hotel and asked him to leave. Well, if you want to know why, here's CNN's Miguel Marquez.
Well, this is basically a case of breathing while black. White people calling the police on black people for either a small offense or infraction or no offense at all. In this case, Jermaine Massey checked into a hotel on December 22nd. It was a DoubleTree hotel, part of the Hilton chain of hotels in Portland, Oregon. He had gone to a concert. He was coming back to his room. His mother had texted, so he wanted to make a phone call. He wanted to do it in the lobby because it seemed fairly urgent. The lobby was busy. He went to a secluded area of the lobby and started making his phone call. That's when he was confronted by the security guard. He hung up with his mom, started putting it on video on his phone. He put it all on Instagram, and we want to show you a little compendium of what he recorded.
He's calling the cops on me because I'm taking a phone call at the DoubleTree Hotel. Say hi, Earl.
Portland police will be here in a minute.
Thank you. Call them. I'm waiting.
Okay.
They're coming. Why? Why are they coming?
Escort you off the property.
Because what? And I'm staying here?
Not anymore.
How am I loitering in an area that's public?
You're sitting here.
So this area is off limits after a certain time?
Only if you're a guest.
I am a guest.
You didn't tell me that.
I said that I'm a guest.
No.
I told you that.
Now, Mr. Massey was on the Don Lemon show. Don asked him, why do you think this sort of thing keeps happening across the country?
It's hurtful. It's humiliating. And I don't understand why it continues to be an issue. I'm a person at the end of the day, just like everyone else, and I deserve respect and fair treatment, and I did not receive that on Saturday. I think that there's a lot of perceptions about black males in particular, that we're threats and we're harmful and we're just fearful individuals, and you know, that bias, it impacts these situations, and it's harmful to us as a people.
Now, insofar as DoubleTree and Hilton hotels, the parent company, Hilton, has issued a statement apologizing for the incident, saying that they do not condone discrimination in any way. And clearly, after a quick investigation, they fired the 2 individuals. CNN has reached out to those 2 individuals. One couldn't be gotten a hold of. The other did not get back to us. But even the mayor of Portland, Ted Wheeler, saying that all of this is part of that systemic nature of discrimination against African Americans in America that happens way too often. Mr. Massey and his lawyers, while thankful for what Hilton has said and done in response to this, they'd like more. They want to see something in writing from them about the policy that led that security guard to confront Mr. Massey in that way in a public space. The hopes is that it will never happen again. Back to you.
Miguel, thank you. Newspapers across the country may have been victims of a cyber attack this weekend. Here's what happened. Several papers, including the LA Times, had trouble getting their Saturday editions out on time because of a printer malfunction. At one point, customer service lines, they were a mess.
Now, Tribune Publishing says it did find malware on its servers on Friday, but workers say they've gotten very little information beyond that. Now, the LA Times quoted a source saying the attack originated outside the U.S., but a spokeswoman for Tribune Publishing couldn't confirm that. Tribune CEO Justin Dearborn says no one's credit card information appears to have been compromised. So new year, new you. That's a, resolution every once in a while, right? For some of us, that could mean, look, we want to get our financial wallets, our planning in order, right? We have an expert who's going to tell us how to do it and the smart way to make that happen coming up. Glad to have you with us. 23 minutes past the hour.
Happy New Day to you. I'm Victor Blackwell. Sorry for cutting you off.
That's all right. It's okay. 2019. 2019. I know we all have these things that we want to get done in 2019. And for a lot of us, it's just making sure our finances are in order. But a lot of times we just don't know where to start, especially with the new tax code. It's confusing.
Yeah, so here's what you need to know. To hit the goals, make things right, do it the smart way. Joining us now, Michelle Singletary. She's a syndicated personal finance columnist for the Washington Post and author of the 21-Day Financial Fast. Michelle, welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, so first we need to know, we're going to get to some viewer questions in a moment, but first we have to tell people that they have to approach their resolutions the smart way. And what's being smart?
Well, basically, you want to be very specific about your goals. You want to be able to measure them. You want it to be relevant. You want to be actionable or attainable, and you want it to be timely, so that you're going to put a time limit on when you're going to save money or open your retirement account. Just don't say, I want to save more money or I want to have more money for retirement. That's not going to really help you. You need to be very specific about how you're going to go about doing it.
You have to have a plan, essentially.
You got to have a plan.
How do we craft that?
Well, one of the things, for example, if you say you want to get rid of debt, I suggest you do something called the debt dash, which is a quick way to hit some of that debt. So you list all of your debts from the smallest to the largest, and you just throw all extra cash at the top debt, making the minimum payments on the rest of them. Now, I know there are people listening already like, she don't know what she's talking about. You got to do one with the highest interest rate. Yes. I know people talk about me. But listen, I know the right way. Because listen, if you were going to use math to do this thing, you wouldn't be in debt in the first place, because it's not logical to have a whole bunch of credit card debt with high interest rate. But if you could knock debts off really quickly, and I know this because I do this with people all the time, they get rid of debt really quickly. They go, oh, I can do this, I can do this. And next thing you know, they've gotten all that debt rid of because they are very energized.
So let's put up more of the ways. There are not smart ways and smart ways to do this using an acronym. Let's put up the list of not smart ways to approach the resolutions. Let's take the first one here. I'm going to save more money. That's not the way to approach it. What's the smart way to approach that?
No, that's crazy. That's just like, I'm going to lose weight and you're just still eating chips. So you want to say, I'd like to save at least $1,000 this year. That's specific. You can measure it. It's attainable. And it's in a time period, because you're here, you got to say 3 to 6 months living expenses. Well, for most people, they're like, you are out of your mind. But if you say, I'm going to save $1,000, because that's enough to cover an emergency. And if you can save more than that, that's great. But don't set the goal so high that about February, you just, you're forgetting it. So that's what you want to do. Be specific. Remember, I said be specific. So $1,000, I'm going to save $1,000 in 2019. That's very attainable for a lot of people.
That makes a difference.
Yeah.
To put something definitive down, because then I feel like your goal is attainable.
And then you've got to break it down month by month or pay by pay, and how you get to that $1,000.
So much easier to make that happen. I want to get to, we have a couple of questions from viewers here. Dave Jordan, and listen what Dave wants to do. I applaud him, because he's got some lofty goals here.
Yes.
I want to pay off debt, open another retirement account, and have at least 2 years worth of living expenses saved by year's end. Those are 3 really big tasks.
Is there an inheritance, Dave, we don't know about? That you're going to save 2 years in a year?
Yeah, Dave. If you haven't been doing that already, you're not going to do that, Dave. I hate to bust your bubble, okay? Let's just start slow. So you want to get rid of debt, do the debt dash. And that's very attainable if you've got a lot of debt. Just knock the smallest one off. You want to open a retirement account. The first place to look is your workplace. If you're not in your workplace retirement plan and you have one, you've got to do that. And I know right now everybody's like, the market is insane. I am not saving in that crazy thing. But you have to. And then, in terms of getting out of debt, again, do the debt dash. And that 2 years, that is going to, by February or March, Dave is just going to be, I can't do it. So try 1 month's living expenses or, $1,500 or $2,000. Make it so that you can achieve it and you won't give up halfway through.
Yeah, that's true. The other is by Steve, who says, I want to give to charities every year to help them stay active. Do I have to bundle every other year if I want to continue to give yearly? I think this comes down to, how do I donate? So I donate to things that I care about, but I can also benefit myself when it comes to taxes.
For tax deduction.
Well, I'm a tither, which means my husband and I give 10% of our gross income to our church, and we give every week on a regular basis. I believe that giving should come first. Now, I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I believe to whom much is given, much is required. Because if you wait till after you pay everybody and their mama, you won't give to charity, and charity needs more money every month, all through the year. We just kind of getting past the holidays, so everybody's giving Thanksgiving through Christmas, but people got to eat in January and February and March. And I love that he wants this to be a goal. So every month, pick the charities that are important to you or your church and give regularly, just like it's a bill. And if it becomes like a bill, it becomes of who you are. And I find that people who do that first, give first, that means the rest of the money you've got to manage in a really good way. And I think I applaud someone who wants to do that and do it regularly. So just pick a couple charities. And here's the other good thing. If you pick charities and you do it regularly, when people come at you for all those crazy stuff like that, paper that costs a lot and them cookies and all that kind of stuff, you can say, well, I already have a giving plan. I give every month.
Yes.
But you do feel like you've done something good when you give.
Absolutely.
There is definitely that. Michelle, I just want to have lunch with you. Michelle Singletary.
You're going to pay, right? Because
Michelle is tight now. Michelle's tight with her money. Thanks so much.
All righty. So 2018, this past year, packed with stargazers, right? The discovery of planets and stars and other space objects. Well, former NASA astronaut Leroy Chow is going to talk to us about it.
Radner. Hilarious. The new CNN film, Love Gilda, uses special access to her diaries, photos, home videos to tell her story in her own words.
And some of the biggest female comedians have been so inspired by Gilda's life and her work that they kind of wanted to send a message out there.
Hi, I'm Gilda Radner. And, okay, now.
Dear Gilda, hi, it's me, Fran Drescher.
Dear Gilda.
Dear Gilda, I loved watching you on Saturday Night Live.
Gilda Radner was a huge inspiration to me.
When I was about 9, I saw the sketch, The Judy Miller Show. It inspired me to write my own one-person comedy sketch. It was directly because of you.
Thank you for teaching us that it's okay to be unapologetically wacky and fearless.
Dear Rosanna Dana.
You blazed a trail for so many of us, and I am so grateful.
Boom, ba, ba, boom.
Was this incredibly funny girl who's like equal to the guys.
I started to experience gynecologic cancer symptoms. I kept talking about you and your symptoms, and then I survived, and then I thrived.
Gilda Radner was a bloody great girl.
Not only were you brilliantly funny, you had a terrific soul.
Love Gilda. New Year's Day at 9 p.m.
So you can watch that, and you can ring in 2019 with us as well. Emerson Cooper, Andy Cohen, co-hosting CNN's New Year's Eve coverage live from Times Square. Brooke Baldwin will be there, Don Lemon. The party starts at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on CNN.
Now, in 2018, there have been some incredible stories about outer space. New details on a cigar-shaped object that came rapidly tumbling through the solar system, discoveries by the Curiosity rover on Mars, the origins of some ghostly space particles, the end of 2 incredible NASA missions.
Yeah, retired NASA astronaut Leroy Chow with us talking about the top space stories, because I don't know if everybody heard, Leroy, first of all, about this weird shaped object. Tell us what that was about that got into the atmosphere.
Well, that is the object you're talking about is the first interstellar object that we have detected that has passed through our solar system. Probably not the first one, just the first one we've detected. It was odd because it was cigar-shaped, not round, as you would expect for like planets and other things that are going to be in the lowest energy state. But it did pass through, and it's gone now, not to return for a very long time, but we still really don't know what it was.
So the Curiosity rover, another big story of 2018, some interesting elements in Martian soil. How about that?
Absolutely. I mean, it discovered the presence of methane in the soil, which could be an indicator of some kind of past life on Mars. Very interesting because it also complements discoveries by other space probes to asteroids and comets that also found organics, indicating that these presence of these organic molecules and even amino acids could indicate that there's life elsewhere in the universe that is more prevalent than we might have previously thought.
Interesting. So I know that scientists were able to trace the origins of this ghostly subatomic particle as well. What was that about?
Oh my goodness, this was really incredible because, of course, we've posited about neutrinos for many decades and finally detected them some years ago, and now we're detecting them more regularly. But this is the first time we've actually traced a neutrino in a straight line back to its origin about 4 billion light years away. So that's very exciting and very interesting. Of course, trillions of neutrinos are passing through our bodies at any moment. And so they're prevalent. They're just hard to detect because they have no charge and, very easily deflected. And this is really a significant event.
Kepler and Dawn ended these NASA missions. What do we learn from them?
Well, Kepler discovered many, many exoplanets. We had not discovered exoplanets really any before. We postulated they were out there, and now we've got new missions out there looking for more exoplanets, and we're finding more and more exoplanets that might have Earth-like conditions, again, coupled with the discovery of these organics on these different bodies out there, indicate that there may be more life out there than we had thought originally.
It's just mind-boggling what NASA's discovered. Yeah, and in saying that, we know they have the New Horizons mission currently. Is the shutdown affecting that in any way?
Well, the shutdown is unfortunate. Of course, all mission-critical activities, for example, support of the International Space Station, will continue. But we've faced these things before at NASA and other government agencies. We'll get through it. Unfortunately, we probably won't get as much coverage of some of these missions because those functions may be shut down or curtailed. But hopefully, we'll get through this shutdown soon and get back to business.
And there are new missions, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are new missions out there. In fact, OSIRIS-REx just reached Bennu, an asteroid only 500 meters in diameter, 2 billion kilometers away. Incredible that we were able to get the spacecraft there and orbit it. It's going to scoop down and bring a sample and actually return it to the Earth. That will definitely be a first. So very exciting things out there in this next year or so.
All righty. Leroy Chow, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Great.
Thanks, Leroy.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy.
So, what is the only thing that upstaged the biggest college football games of the year? An animal.
Of course.
We had bone-crushing hits, incredible plays in this game, the semifinals, both of them fantastic, but one viral moment